Okay, so she is standing on that platform with Centaur Maki on it. And that's just kind of another symbol of the Greeks being able to prevail over the barbarians, or who they consider as the barbarians. And centaurs obviously are barbaric in the Greek mind. They're kind of a symbol of that. It's just all kind of coming back around to the triumph of the Greek culture, and the Greek defeat of the Persians as well. And then also there's high reliefs depicting the Greek defeat of the Amazons, which is called Amazonomachy, and that's on her shield. And then on the shield's interior, there's Gigantomachy on the interior of this shield. So both sides of the shield have, different cultures or different barbarians that the Greeks are actually defeating. And it's just another symbol of the triumph of order over chaos, and the Greek civilization over barbarism, and Athens over Persia, really. So here's another scene of Centaur Maki from Metope 28 of the south side of the Parthenon. I believe this was on the outside, because the outside of the Parthenon was Doric, and Doric is the only order with metopes in it, and this would be in the frieze area that's divided up into sections or metopes. And this is Metope 28, 447, 438 BCE, marble, 4 feet, 8 inches high, so it's actually fairly large. And these are the best preserved on the south side, the metopes. And we can see that the subject is Centaur Maki. The triumphant centaur is actually rearing up its hind legs right over the body of an injured Greek. And parts of this are in the round. In other metopes, the Greeks actually have the upper hand, but not in this one. And I think it just is trying to show that the war with the Persian was hard fought and hard won, and Greeks did suffer losses. So they are showing some struggle with other, with this. So it kind of symbolizes that, I guess, that it was a hard won fight. And throughout the metopes on the Parthenon, Centaur Maki, Gigantomachy, and Amazon Maki, and the Trojan War, they all symbolize the reference of the Greek-Persian conflict. Here's another Centaur Maki from Metope 28, south side, where they're better preserved. So we're going to talk about this one a little bit. Helos and his horses from the east pediment on the Parthenon. It could be Dionysus or Heracles, but we'll talk about this one a little bit. This kind of depicts the birth of Athena. The center of the pediment is actually removed during Christian times, but there are some spectators to the left and to the right who witnessed Athena's birth on Mount Olympus. And this particular piece is shown on the right side of the pediment. So this would be the right side of the pediment of the birth of Athena. And so these people were there, to witness her birth on Mount Olympus. And it shows Helos, the sun, and his chariots rising from the pediment floor. And then next to them is a powerful male figure, and it's thought to either be the wine god Dionysos or Heracles. So they're not quite sure. Okay, so we have another chunk of that same eastern pediment, and it pictures 3 goddesses. It's from the right-hand side of the pediment. And they think that the 3 goddesses are Hestia, Dione, and Aphrodite. And this side of the pediment also featured horses that kind of sank below the pediment's floor. So this is kind of a new way that the sculptors are dealing with filling that awkward triangular shaped pediment. They're actually using it as a horizon line, and that figures actually move through it effortlessly. So it's really kind of, with horses kind of coming halfway out of it and everything, they're kind of treating it like it can be moved through. And that's a little different than, the first ones that we looked at that were a little bit awkward because they were still trying to figure out how to deal with that triangular shape. This particular group of goddesses really shows the Greeks' mastery of the human form. There's a lot of folds in the garments. They're actually revealing and yet concealing the bodies of the women who wear the garments. And they really do create a play of light and shade in the fold as well. So you can really see their bodies through the almost looks like a wet cloth or something. Okay, so we're going to move on, just some other ones from the Parthenon. But we're going to look at this one now. So this is details of the Panatheic festival procession frieze from the Parthenon, and it's about 3 feet 6 inches high. And the top shows horsemen in the north frieze, center Poseidon, Apollo, Artemis, Aphrodite, Eros, and then bottom elders and maidens down here. So I'll talk about that a little bit more. So this may be the most noteworthy piece of sculptural decoration on the Parthenon. It's actually the inner Ionic frieze that was on the inside of the Parthenon. So the outside was, Doric in order. It had metopes in the frieze, but the Ionic frieze on the interior was one continuous piece, and it detailed this procession, this Panatheic procession. And the Panatheic festival took place every 4 years in Athens, and this is actually what the subject of the frieze is. It shows what the Athenians would do every 4 years, and it really does tell us that the Athenians thought very highly of themselves to incorporate themselves in the iconographical sculptural program that's part of this temple. It's pretty remarkable because no other Greek temple ever featured a human event before in its decoration. So this is kind of yet another example of the Athenians' sense of self-worth, which was very high. So a little background on the Panatheic procession. It began at the Dipylon Gate. It passed through the Agora, or central square of Athens, and then it actually ended on the Acropolis itself, where the old wooden statue of Athena would be adorned with a new peplos, or kind of a robe or long garment that was worn by women at the time. So this wooden sculpture was quite old and probably archaic in style and age, and it had been rescued from destruction during the Persian conflict, and it was actually housed in the Erecthion, which is another temple on the Athenian Acropolis by this point in time when the Parthenon was made. So this frieze procession actually begins on the west side, which is the temple's rear, and then kind of continues down both sides parallel to each other, and then it ends at the center of the east frieze at the front of the temple. And it's over the doorway of the cella that actually houses the huge cult statue of Athena. So the upper part of the frieze is actually in higher relief than the lower part of the frieze. So this is probably due to the fact that sculptors are trying to take in optical effects so that it's actually more clearly seen from the ground looking up. So they made the upper part of the frieze in deeper relief. Because of that, it actually helps it become more clear to people gazing from below, basically. So on the western side, youths mount their horses, which is on the top here. On the north and south sides, the momentum picks up. Musicians, animals, and are shown. The east side, gods and goddesses watch the procession, but they don't actually take part in it. They are just spectators. I believe that's right here. Aphrodite is actually extending her arm, I believe. It's kind of cut off there, and she's actually pointing out certain figures in the procession. And this is, obviously this scene is another indicator of the Athenians' high self-worth, to think that the gods are looking at them. Yeah, so this procession, the Parthenon really honors Athena as much as it honors the Athenian people. So it's a big kind of pat on the back, really, is what it is. Okay, moving on. This is another, detail from the Panatheic festival procession. So we're going to talk about Menecles and the Propylaea, which is another building on the Acropolis in Greece. And this is basically the grandiose entrance to the Acropolis. And Menecles was the architect that built it. It was a difficult site. It had a very deep slope. And he had to deal with the change in ground level by dividing the building up into eastern and western sections. And it's Doric in style, and the space between the central pair of columns on each side was enlarged to make room for the Panatheic festival procession that would come through this area. So a wide ramped causeway was also necessary on either side of it. So this is the ramped area, but on either side of it were stairways, which allowed foot traffic to travel. And so they might have horses or chariots come on the ramp where they might have foot traffic taking the stairs on either side. Inside the building, there were Ionic columns supporting a split-level roof. And once again, Doric and Ionic are mixed. And you can see that this is Doric because of the capitals, and then also the frieze is divided into metopes. The gateway was actually never completed, but the northwest wing was of special importance. In Roman times, it actually held a pinacotheque, or picture gallery. And in it, paintings on wood panels were done by major artists of the time. And it's unsure if this was actually the original purpose of the wing, but it can be noted that this is kind of the first known building that had a specific purpose of housing and displaying paintings, and was kind of a forerunner to the modern museum. So that's kind of interesting. So here's the Erecthion looking northeast, another building on the Athenian Acropolis, 421 BCE. They began work on it. They are actually replacing the archaic Athena temple that the Persians had destroyed. And this is called the Erecthion. It's a multiple shrine. It honored Athena and housed the ancient wood statue that was kind of the ending point for the Panatheic procession. But it also had shrines to other gods and demigods. Among these were Erecthius, the early king of Athens. And then also Kekrops was also honored. He was another king of Athens. He actually served as a judge in the contest between Athena and Poseidon. Basically, a contest was waged between those two gods to see who would be the god of the city of Athens, and Athena won. And supposedly, the Erecthion is built on the site where the contest between Athena and Poseidon took place. So Poseidon actually had staked his claim to Athens by striking the Acropolis rock with his trident, and that actually produced a saltwater spring. And the imprint from his trident is actually located in the north side of the Erecthion nearby. So Poseidon's trident mark. So we have that here. So there's a saltwater spring there. Nearby, it's thought that Athena caused an olive tree to grow. A tree stands on the west end of the temple. And Athena's tree kind of reminded the citizens of Athena's triumph over Poseidon, which I believe is right here. There's the tree, the olive tree that she planted. The Erecthion features an asymmetrical plan and is the opposite of the simple, harmonious, balanced plan of the Doric Parthenon. And its irregular form is due to the fact that it had to incorporate the tomb of Kekrops, an early king, and other pre-existing shrines, and the trident mark, and the olive tree, and also I think it's built on a hill, so it just kind of made a weird temple, really. The architect is unknown, but he had to work with the problem of uneven terrain. As a result, the building has four sides that are very different. Even though the form of the building is quite awkward, the decorative details are exquisite. The Ionic capitals are inlaid with gold rock crystal colored glass, and the frieze was made of a special stone, kind of a blue-gray limestone. And then also it has Karyotid or woman figures as columns out front too. I think there's 6 of them, I believe. Let me check and see how much time we have. Okay, so we're starting to run out of time. We'll take a look at the Karyotids quickly. This is probably the most striking feature. It's on the southern porch, and it's Ionic in style. And they wear garments made of material, and, they resemble the flutes in the columns. And it really shows that this is indeed from the classical period of Greek art. And that's pretty much it. We'll go into the next building in the next video.